have 21 years in the corporate workspace, and working in different environments around different people, I would watch things happen to people. And at first, I just didn't understand what I was seeing because I was much younger. I was inexperienced, but there was like this trend where certain behaviors, certain things, people would be upset. People felt that they were doing the right thing in the workplace, but they were still being wronged, so to speak. So I started to pay attention, and it was like there's something in my gut, there's something wrong with this. There's something wrong with the way people are being treated. And at that time I didn't, understand, and I got into a lot of trouble myself as well. I am no stranger to that because I'm very outspoken, but I'm not disrespectful. But if I have questions, I'll ask. And in the corporate world, they say they're open to questions. They're not. It you ask too many questions, it's considered to be you're standoffish, you're hostile, you have an attitude. But I didn't, when I was younger, I didn't understand those things, and I thought, hey, well, you said to ask questions, I'm just doing what you said you know so after being in these corporate spaces and experiencing watching people being wronged, I started really to experience and educate myself about what was happening, and then started helping people. And I noticed that people would come ask me questions, and I would navigate them through their situations, and it just grew from there. um why I wanted to do it, because I just didn't want to see people in trouble that I didn't feel deserved to be in trouble. They were just trying to do their job, and sometimes you just can't do that. Well, some of the typical problems would include, especially with women of color, Black women, when they would speak out, they're automatically considered hostile. Um, they would say that, they would share what was going on with them. They were either considered hostile, or they would be whiny, or she's whining again. When they're speaking, you'll see the proverbial rolling of the eyes, like, here we go. And then, I saw a situation where somebody spoke out about her health, prematurely spoke out about her health. She didn't have accommodations in place, and she was just trying to get some true guidance. And that was the worst thing she could have done. You know, now that she shared her health, she was trying to be transparent, told them what her diagnosis was and everything. Then they sent her to HR, and she thinks, at this point, HR is her friend, because a lot of people think HR is their friend, and she's being transparent, and she has this diagnosis, this blood born diagnosis. She was born with this chronic illness. And when she shared that, behind I mean, even though it wasn't said out loud, but all hell broke loose for her, because basically what she didn't realize was she was putting them on notice that she was born with this illness that did not have a cure. And she was just trying to be honest, saying, I need a little help, in telling them what her symptoms were. And in turn, excuse me, she got fired. And when that happened, it was like, okay, the message is, if you need us in HR, we're here for you. And they give you the pat on the shoulder, and they talk to you like this to make you feel comfortable. And when somebody talks to you like this, you're going to spill your guts. No, wrong thing to do. And that's what she did. So now this person that's chronically ill is unemployed, right? They fought her on unemployment, and it was just disastrous because somebody tried to be honest and transparent about what was going on and needed a little help to perform their job successfully. So that was just one of the situations that I saw. And it's like you feel horrible. And then after, this person was terminated, they come in and they say, you can't talk to this person. And if they contact you, you have to let leadership know. If you don't let leadership know, you're going to face consequences. They no longer work here. They have all these security measures. They cannot enter the building, you know. And I just thought it was overkill, because I don't know how many people knew her situation like I did intimately, but it was just from the beginning to the end, it was wrong. I knew she was just looking for help and going to the people who she thought were the right people, and look what happened. So that's one of the situations that really opened my eyes. Like, wow, you go to HR and you're in, you probably shouldn't be there, but then it's like a double-edged sword because when you come in, they talk to you and tell you that's what we're here for. And then when you do reach out to them for help, they're assessing how much liability you are to their business. They're not really helping you. They're assessing the liability because they need to know what your risk factor is and how fast we have to get you out because are we going to need to spend a lot of money on you? So that's what, I think I addressed that. Well, I know I did in one of my videos where if you're going to ask for an accommodation, if you don't feel good, if you have these medical issues going on, do not give them a heads up. Just go into the process, whatever it may be. It's usually with a third party. You reach out to the third party, find out what forms you have to fill out, you consult the policy and go into the process. You don't give the leadership a warning. Well, I'm not feeling good and I'm gonna, I think I'm gonna get file for an accommodation. You don't give them that heads up because in that period between you going to file for this accommodation and actually getting the accommodation, they've concocted something and they're going to get you out because you're at risk. So that's like one of the things that I've watched over and over again. The interviewing process, do not tell them that you have a medical diagnosis on the interview. And some people was like, well, that's dishonest. No, you're preserving your privacy and your medical health records. You don't need to report that you don't feel good or you have this diagnosis until you actually need an accommodation. But some people will get on the interview not realizing once you say that, you can just end the interview yourself because you're done. They're not going to bring you in any, their whole interest is their bottom line, and any threat to that, they're going to eliminate. Pretty much the bottom line, in my experience, has been the dollar. And they have to say things out loud that sound great to get you in there. But when you get in there, there's a game being played. And a lot of people don't understand you're either going to play or you're going to be played, but you're in the game, whether you like it or not. That's just what it is. You have to learn. That's how I started the page. You have to learn the corporate speak, which is like a language in itself. Learn how to say certain things so you're not considered rude or obnoxious. There's just this culture in there, culture cult, it's like cultish, and that's what it felt like to me. um I think there's a disconnect. Like I have a few notes on the disconnect. Like, while you're in the corporate environment, you should be visible. This is what is understood. Be visible, be kind, be collaborative, be a teammate, you know, step up, help your coworkers. But too much visibility becomes a problem sometimes. But they're telling you to be visible, but now it's like, wow, she's just all over the place, and it turns into something that it's not. You're listening to what you're told in your onboarding and your training with your leadership and your one-on-ones. And then when you do it, you're going to be punished. So if you're visible now, you're all over the place. You know, should this person be talking to that person? Should this person be in that meeting? You know, that's one of the disconnects. And then the safety, the psychological safety is one thing. If you don't feel safe, everybody has a right to not be bullied. Everybody has a right to work in peace. Everybody has a right to feel safe. That they say that, but they don't mean that because those environments are not safe if you don't know how to play this corporate game. And this is what people don't understand. It's like, okay, I did a video on It's never smarter to be smarter than your boss. You cannot be smarter than your boss. You can't outshine the master. That's in the 48 laws of power. Because once you do, you're considered a threat, you know. But on the other end, you're giving this message, we need somebody that gets in there and they're a rock star and just do your best, you know, make this team shine and we're going to support you. And then as soon as you do that, you become a threat because somebody believes you're coming after their job or, no, we have to like get this person under wraps. So you want to show your intelligence, but then and you want to show that you're a team player and you want to show that you're in there to help, but that can work against you. But that's an unwritten rule. They're never going to tell you that. So it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So that's, I there this disconnect is they want in my mind, they want their rules out there, the guidelines that they go by, but depending on where you are in the food chain, how popular you are, what clique you're with, if you are an ally to the decision maker and how they view you, right? It just depends where you are in there. You have to know your position, where you are, who's who, what's what, who the decision makers are, who they aren't, who they don't like. You have to know these things. And meanwhile, you still have to function and you're getting by while learning all of these things. That's not easy to do. And especially if you're coming straight in from college, who's going to tell you that? Nobody's gonna tell you that, and you're gonna make a lot of mistakes and probably be terminated a few times because that's just what happens when you're not playing those rules. The unwritten rules, you're playing the game. You don't know the rules, you're gonna lose.